Chapter 20. Helen stayed outside under her tree for some time after Kittering had gone. She wanted to remain exactly where he had left her, relaxing in the warm memory of his presence. By some queer alchemy, it made her feel close to him. A little wide-eyed, she wondered what it was about this illiterate cowboy that had captivated her so. For she admitted to herself freely that she was in love with him. Wildly in love with him. The struggle for the Box Elder Valley was already becoming secondary in importance to her. She thought of Wilding less as one who was trying to dispose her father and herself than as an enemy of Kittering, as one who had fixed a murder charge upon him, who had tried to kill him and would try again to kill him. Her own grievances against Wilding had come to be translated in those terms. And Kittering, that he was in love with her, she hadn't the least doubt. No woman could have failed to see the worship in his eyes. Laying beneath the tree where he had just been, she hugged to herself the few memories she had of him. Their conversations, his incredible strength, the admiration in every word or gesture and towards her. The appearance of Doc Martin, leading his saddle horse, broke the pleasant mist which surrounded her, and she hailed him cheerfully. "Where are you going, Doctor?" He halted, smiling down on her.
"I'm going in to High Springs to see if any of my patients are still alive."
"Oh, I feel so guilty about that. I wanted to talk to you, and I didn't know how to bring up the subject. You've kind of let your practice go. You've given up all your time and risked your life staying out here with us. I don't know why you do it." The doctor leaned against the saddle.
"I'll tell you a secret, Helen,"
he said.
"You hear a good deal about a physician's ethics and his duty to humanity and all the rest of it. Well, my duty to the humanity of High Springs consists mostly of plugging up bullet holes which are opened in drunken fights in the saloons of High Springs. The town's real business, by the way. Sometimes I wonder if my duty to humanity wouldn't be more ethically realized by letting those stupid, quarrelsome folks kill each other off. There's times I'm kind of tempted."
He sighed.
"High Springs would likely be a better place for it, and of course, when it comes to choice between them and you—"
He separated his hands in an eloquent conclusion.
"I consider it a privilege to have a real good excuse for coming out and staying here."
"Dr. Martin, you must cut high swath through the feminine population of High Springs. What woman couldn't resist such compliments as that?"
"It's not flattery,"
he said, gathering up his reins.
"It's the doggone truth. I'll just ride in and see what the mortality rate is in the saloons today, and then I'll pack out some more grub in the mail if there is any."
"Sometime, Doctor, write out your philosophy for me, will you? You certainly see humanity from underneath it."
"Oh, the stupidities which human beings can inflict upon one another are limitless and beyond belief," he said. "Well, goodbye, girl. Don't be moving around too much. You're feeling a lot better now, and you're liable to bite off more than is good for you. I'll be back quick as I can."
She glanced up at the sky. "You won't get to town until dark."
"Uh-huh. Figure to get back here tomorrow about the middle of the afternoon. So long."
Slocum came out to wave, and he approached his daughter as the doctor trotted off down the trail. "You feeling better, Helen?" "Dad, I could get up and run." "Yeah? Well, you better let me pack you back into the house all the same. The sun will be going down behind that hill pretty soon, and it'll be downright chilly. What would you like for some supper?" "You know darn well the only thing you can make is beef, potatoes, and cornbread," she replied, putting her good arm around his neck as he lifted her from the ground.
I might as well say that's what I want, 'cause that's what I'll be getting.
Well, glad to hear it, he said, walking slowly towards the cabin with her. I was fixin' to surprise you with a little beef and potatoes, but as long as that's what you wanted, that'll be all right.
I can stand it as long as you can. You'll be darn glad when I'm up around and can do the cooking again.
I kind of will at that, he said, and lowered her gently into the bunk. And maybe it ain't all on account of the cooking neither. Helen slept soundly that night. No hints or threats of alarm could break the new happiness that had uplifted her. Slocum paced restlessly on his never-ending rounds, saw the little peaceful smile that transfigured her face. He wondered at it, standing over her with his rifle clutched in his hands. For him, there was no rest. 100 times a night he started up at some real or imagined sound, his hands going out instinctively to the rifle which leaned against his bunk. He could not lie back again until he had gotten up and with a gun in hand, crouched listening at window and door and straining his eyes into the darkness for some betraying movement. By morning, he was red-eyed and irritable, his nerves strained to the breaking point. But his iron will carried him in over the petty annoyances of the household tasks. He made breakfast and cared for Helen's needs and carried her out to lay under the tree again. While she basked gratefully in the morning sunlight, he began to work off some of his energy on the woodpile. She dreamed on, watching the tremendous muscles swelling under his shirt as the axe sank deep into the wood at each stroke and the chips flew in a white shower. She noticed that his rifle leaned against a tree within easy reach. He chopped leisurely, pausing every few minutes to lift his head in a casual but penetrating glance around. Presently, after one of those pauses, he laid down the axe, picked up the rifle, and sauntered over to Helen's side. The girl turned at once to look down the trail. As she had expected, there was horses down there. With her first glance, she counted 3, and turning to look up quickly at her father. Reckon we're going to be honored by another visit from the owner of the ranch, Slocum said, his lips twisted bitterly over the words. They waited for the riders to approach, the girl leaning back against the rough bark of the tree, her father standing over her, his rifle cradled in his arm. The horses came closer. They saw now that 2 men were riding, leading a third horse who was riderless. Wilding and his slander plug, Slocum said softly. In the bright sunshine, men and horses looked huge, looming up on the trail like giants, and they grew larger as they approached, yet seeming to grow smaller in proportion at the same time. It was a queer, unreal illusion. There was a sudden gasp from the foot of the tree, and Slocum heard his daughter's voice. A little chill ran through him at the stark terror in her words. Dad, isn't that Jim's horse? Patch, is that who they're leading? Steady, gal. We'll see in a minute what this is all about. Patch was limping a little on the front leg. He was tired and dusty, but his bold coloring showed up clear and strong in the intense light. And Helen's eyes clung to the empty saddle in horrified fascination. Every vestige of returning color had left her cheeks, her skin appeared like a transparent wax, and her eyes were dilated with fear. So intent was she upon Patch that she didn't even see the riders as they pulled up directly in front of her father and herself. Her eyes were searching the horse's side, and as he wheeled nervously, she found the blue stain on his flank that she had been seeking. As though her last hope had been snatched away, she sank back against the rough bark of the tree, her lips trembling helplessly. Slocum spoke roughly. What do you want, Wilding? Can't you see that you're not welcome over here? Helen looked up then to see Wilding looming over her. He was carrying a smashed and dirty metal box under one arm. "You can quit your bluffing, Slocum," he purred. "I'm here to show you my hand and make a final offer to you. Plug." He turned to his henchman. "Mind if I talk to the Slocums alone for a minute?" Plug's eyes darted suggestively to Helen's face, and his yellow teeth appeared briefly. He dismounted and led the horses away a few paces. Wilding waved his left hand towards them. "No need for me to ask if that you've seen the paint horse," he said, lowering himself to the ground. "I reckon you know what it means." "Wilding," Slocum's voice grated, "be careful what you say. If you done killed that boy—" His rifle barrel began to travel up without conscious volition. In his grim, desperate eyes moved that raging light, that hint of tremendous charged violence that could erupt like a volcano. He seemed ready to explode into furious action. Watching him, Helen's blood congealed in a quick, sickening fear. She was tense with premonition, but her throat seemed paralyzed, and she couldn't speak, and she couldn't make a sound. But Wilding, who certainly did not lack courage, was unfrightened. His eyes were cool and watchful. "No, I didn't kill him," he said. "I didn't have to. He done killed himself." He held out the battered, dirty box to Slocum. "The deed for the ranch was in this box in my desk. I was fixing to take it up to the county seat and get it registered, and Kittering sneaked into the house and stole it. We had a bunch of cows rounded up back of the kraal, and he went straight for 'em and stampeded 'em, figuring to get out under cover from the stampede. I guess his horse fell." He shrugged slightly. "You know what happens when a man is on the ground in front of a bunch of charging steers. We found what was left later on." Again he held up the box, and watching the effect of his words. Slocum was rigid, gripping his rifle. Helen leaned back against the tree, her eyes closed, her lips white in her pale face. She felt as though she was dead inside, too numb for emotion. "You're better off, Slocum," Wilding said. "He was a gunman and a fighter. There was 3 murder charges agin him. Now maybe you'll come to your senses and listen to us straight out and come to a deal. I don't aim to be hard on you." There was no answer. "I got the deed," Wilding reminded them. "I can have you put off the place any time I say, and I don't want to have to do that unless I have to. Slocum, I'd like to talk to Helen for a minute." "Anything you got to say, you can say in front of me," Slocum replied harshly. Helen opened her eyes. "I'll talk to him, Dad," she said. Her father glanced at her direction as though in doubt, but obediently moved off in Plug's direction. At once Wilding dropped beside her. "Listen," he began. "First off, I don't want you to think that I'm taking the position you gotta marry, or I'll take your father's land away. I don't want you to think that. It's bad business." "But that's exactly what I do think, Mr. Wilding," Helen said shortly. She was exerting every ounce of her flagging will to control her face and to speak calmly. She didn't want to break down yet, not until she managed to get more information. "It ain't true," Wilding said seriously. "Sure, I'm determined to have this valley. It's part of the ranch. I'll have it whether you marry me or not, but by my way, you and your dad can have it too, and we can share the ranch all together." "In other words, you're determined to have the valley and me as well." "Well, that's a mighty harsh way of putting it," he protested. "Look at it this way. I'm going to get the valley one way or another. I'm offering to share not only the valley, but the whole ranch with your dad because, well, I'm in love with you, and I want to stop this fighting. I want you to marry me." "Just a minute, Mr. Wilding. Before I allow you to say anything further, there's just one thing I want you to do." "Sure. I want you to tell me the truth, but what happened to Jim Kittering? He reared back at her in total astonishment. The truth? Why, I already done told you the truth. Are you sure that he's dead? Caught in the stampede, did you find his body? Wilding's eyes never flickered. Yeah, he said steadily. We found him. We didn't bring him with his horse because, well, he wasn't a purty sight. When a herd of steers tromps over you. He saw the shudder that passed through the girl's body and changed swiftly. There's no call for us to talk about that anymore. It's over and done with. He shouldn't have tried to steal the deed, Helen. I'm asking you to marry me. Not because of the valley, but because I love you. The girl evaded his reaching hand. I'm sorry. Her voice was coldly final. Your offer, it is very flattering. She saw chagrin in his eyes turn to hardness. Better think about it, he warned quietly. You're making a mistake. The complete absence of bluster told her that he was dangerous, but she raised her chin defiantly. You may as well know that I don't believe you and I don't trust you. I am going to marry Jim Kittering, and I don't believe he's dead. Would have brought his body along and gloated. Now take your gunman and get out of here, and don't be coming back no more. Wilding rose to his feet. His voice was still quiet. I told you I plumb determined to have you and the valley, he said, his eyes straying past her to where Slocum was examining Patch's leg when Plug looked up. It's come to a stage now where you can't stop it or change it. Eyes on Plug, he made a downward motion with his head. Helen saw the signal, but she had no time to cry out a warning. Plug's gun darted up like lightning, and Slocum, caught off guard, found himself staring into the threatening muzzle. He straightened up slowly, his fingers tense on the barrel of his rifle. Get his gun and come on over here. Plug took the rifle from Slocum's unresisting hand and then shoved him towards the tree. Slocum, said Wilding, I just decided that Helen ain't getting proper care out here, and she'll get, well, a heap faster if she was made comfortable. So I'm taking her to the ranch. You don't have to come if you don't want to. He took the rifle from Plug. I'll watch him. Take the girl. It had happened so quickly that there was scarcely time for Slocum to grasp his meaning. But with realization, the change in him was frightening. The blood rushed into his face until it was black with charged passion. The powerful muscles of his neck and shoulders heaved and bunched as though he was getting himself set under a mighty load, and his fingers clenched convulsively. Look out, Wilding, he said. His voice was so choked it was barely audible. Don't either of you skunks touch her. I'll tear you apart with my bare hands. You ain't got enough bullets in you to stop me. Wilding hitched his rifle up higher in his left arm. You're wrong again, he said coldly, and if you don't believe me, go ahead and try it. Dad, don't, please, Helen cried. Take her, Plug. Don't you touch her! The gunman dropped his sixth gun into his holster, and with a wary eye on Slocum, stepped over his boss to the tree where the girl lay. And as he bent over, Slocum crouched, his shoulders swinging forward. Wilding's finger began to tighten on the trigger, and death was poised to strike. Then, suddenly, alarmingly, Helen screamed. She stared wildly over Plug's shoulder, and all three whirled, not 30 feet. Kittering was stalking towards them, his eyes blazing, and the grimy mask on his face. The puncher's clothes were torn, and white with dust, and blood smeared the whole left side of his face, and he had lost his hat, and he limped as he walked, but his right hand was swinging low over the butt of his gun, and that tense right arm told them that the final reckoning between him and Plug was at hand. Slocum moved like a streak. His powerful right fist caught Wilding under the ear and lifted him from his feet, and the rifle flew into the air, and the foreman landed, and rolled over twice before coming to rest. The two gunmen never glanced aside, steadily intent upon one another. For them, this meeting was the logical, the inevitable outcome of an instant and mutual hatred. They had known from the very beginning that sooner or later it would come, and every subsequent happening had brought it closer and more sure. Until one of them was eliminated, the other would have no peace. There was a certain grim joy in both faces as Kittering stalked nearer and Plug turned slowly to face him. Joy that the final decision was at last to be made. And for the moment, the people and the motives behind their feud were forgotten. They were alone, isolated by the intensity of primitive hatred. Even to Kittering, Helen and her father were blotted out. He was absorbed in the brutal face opposition and in the tense, quivering arm that hung poised, ready to flash into action. Kittering halted. They stood stock still, facing each other, and to the girl and her father neither man seemed human. They were carried away by forces greater than themselves, and they were reduced to the element motions that they carried them. No signal passed between them, no words were spoken. Yet suddenly, at the exact same instant, the right arm of each man seemed to disappear, dissolve into motion. Kittering's gun was barely clear of its sheath as he fired. Two heavy reports boomed out. Plug jerked two visible blows. His weapon blasted flame, and they saw the spurt of sand at Kittering's feet. Silence. Kittering crouched, his smoking gun poised, his eyes fixed on his adversary. Plug was wilting on his feet, straining to bring up his gun, even as his eyes grew glassy. And then he was dead before he struck the ground. Then the storm broke for Helen, and she found the released tears scalding her cheeks while she sobbed broken, incoherent words against Kittering's shirt. He held her tightly, trying to check the racking spasms that shook her. He said you were dead, she wailed, clutching him with frantic fingers, as though to assure herself of his solidity. I don't feel much like a ghost, the puncher said awkwardly, looking down at her hair. He lifted her nose out of his breast pocket and kissed her gently. Come on, honey, get a grip of yourself. I'm all right, she gasped, rubbing desperately at her eyes. Presently, when she'd calmed down, Slocum carried her into the cabin while Kittering caught up the ranch horses and led them back to the tree. He had no regrets. Looking down over Plug's limp body with its lips still drawn back over the tobacco-stained teeth, he hardly felt as though he had killed a man. He had simply wiped out a savage animal, an animal that felt no human emotions but merely existed to kill. He loaded Plug's body onto his saddle and lashed him there. Then he returned to Wilding, who was sitting up with a hand on his neck. The blow that Slocum had struck him had wrenched his neck muscles painfully and had made him temporarily deaf in one ear. Kittering wasted no time with him either. He pulled him up and shoved him onto his horse and pulled the reins of Plug's horse into his hand. Wilding, he said, this here's your last chance. Don't come back, and if you do, I'll make it my business to kill you, even if it makes me an outlaw. Remember, I mean what I say. Now get. He turned back to the cabin, limping, staggering now with weariness, to see Slocum watching him from the doorway. The older man's eyes were grave with questioning. He nodded in answer to that unspoken question. He'll be back, he said, and the whole gang with him. Hell is sure gonna bust loose around here. Wish we could get Helen away. Where's Doc Martin? Went to town for some grub. Good. You got a barrel for water. We'll need all the food and water we can pack in. When the Doc and Harkness get back, we best get ready for a fight. There's going to be a showdown here, Slocum. Wilding, he ain't got the deed. He thinks I had it, and that it was trampled into nothing in the stampede, 'cause all he found was that empty box, but I didn't have it. Nobody knows where it is. His last chance now is to drive us out or kill us off, using Plug's killing as an excuse. We can't expect help from anybody, so it looks like it's going to be kill or be killed. End of chapter 20.